just to review a few basics. One, point out a few new additions that we've made. If you look at some of your apps, you'll notice that there's a question mark to the upper right. So you see here I'm on the staff portal and I see this new training for Google Apps question mark. If I click on that, it's going to give me training relevant to that particular app. So in this case, it's going to be Google Sites. I can search it, or I can sort of go through my lessons. Some of these are videos, some are just audio, some is text, but it's some good resources for new users, or if you just want to have a refresher on that particular app. So you see if I'm here in Gmail and I click on it, it's going to give me training specifically for Gmail. So most of the apps have it, Calendar, Gmail, Drive, Sheets, etc. I think the only one, the major one that doesn't have it right now is Contacts, but most of the others will have it. So let's review just a few basics for Google Drive and sharing, and then also using the link in Gmail, because people are using this more. I think people are getting the hang of it, I just want to go over a few nuances that I think will be helpful to people. So just a reminder, I'm going to click on my Google Grid. I'm going to go into my Drive to access my Drive. And a useful analogy, again, I find is think of this as kind of like your My Documents folder. This is where your documents live. This is where you're going to organize, name, share, etc. If I click on the grid and I go directly into Docs or Sheets or Slide, that's kind of like going into Word or Excel or PowerPoint, where I'm working specifically with that file type. Here I'm working with Docs, whether it be a Google Doc or a Word doc. I've got templates, etc. So that may be a shortcut for dealing with that kind of stuff. You still have a lot of the same options available within that, but for now we're going to work inside of Drive. So I always recommend that people organize, so whether it be in Google or whether it be in your My Documents folder on your desktop, organization is going to help you a lot. So creating a good folder structure, deciding how you're going to share the folders with different people, and then the documents inside of them. You can see I'm not always good about it, as sometimes I have some loose documents here. But once I've created some folders or files, you'll notice that even though this is in the web browser, I can access a lot of stuff simply by right-clicking. So if I right-click within that, it's going to give me some options in terms of sharing. I can organize it, I can rename it, I can do a few things with it. A note, one of the nice things with Google Drive is that if I do rename or move a file or folder, it's not going to break the sharing. It's not going to change the URL to that. So unlike if you're doing stuff in Windows and on the web, if you rename or move something, you can break the link to it. In this, the link to that document is going to be the same. You may have to fix the sharing if you move it into a folder with different permissions, but the link will be the same. So a quick, if you right-click, you'll see this Get Shareable Link button. Generally, that's a convenient shortcut that's going to allow you to turn it on so that anyone with the link can view that document. So generally, I'm not, I don't use that one a lot. It's sort of a default, and it does, again, make it so that anyone in the world with a link can view that document. So what I prefer is if I'm going to share a file or folder, is I'm just going to go into Share. And this is going to give me a lot more options. So here's my shareable link here again. Again, I'm not going to use that, but you'll notice here I'm sharing this with one person. This is where I can invite people to be able to view or edit that document or folder. Again, in order to use this functionality, the person I'm inviting has to have a Google account. So either a town or school user here in North Andover, someone with a Gmail account, or someone in another town or organization who uses Google Apps in order to invite somebody by name. If I go under Advanced, this is also where I can change this from specific people can access to basically anyone with a link can access it. So generally, if I'm doing that, I'm going to do view versus edit because it's a little less secure. Once we get a little more advanced and we start using this more for sharing things on the web, we can actually make things searchable and public on the web. But generally, you're not going to do that. You're going to use anyone with a link if you're sharing with people who are outside of our organization or they don't have a Google account. So if you know that you're sharing with people outside of the organization and you just need a quick link, that's where the Get Shareable link can be useful. You can share an entire folder, you can share a subfolder, you can share, and you can see here I'm just toggling this like I would a Windows thing. I can toggle by owner, modify date, name, etc. So I can share an entire folder, or you'll notice I can go in and I can do the same thing on a specific file. So the file doesn't have to be a Google Docs format file. It can be in any format. It's going to give you some options. Obviously, if it's not in a Google Docs format, you're not going to have the ability to like collaborate and share online. It's going to be just more of a straight type permission. So that is a little bit more straightforward way of sharing. It's probably the easiest way to keep track of what you're doing is to share out of Google Drive. It allows you to organize. It allows you to have a little clearer picture of who you're sharing things with. However, there is a convenience if you want to use Drive a little bit more like you would use attachments. So I'm going to go over a quick thing here. So if I'm going to fire up a new email message and I want to directly attach a Google Drive document or folder to that email, I can do it right from my email message here. And there's a few advantages to doing that. So you'll notice down here I've got my paperclip where I would do a normal attachment. So if I click that, it's going to let me browse my computer. It's going to attach. And that's kind of the old-fashioned way of doing that. To get the advantages of using Google Drive, which are you can send entire folders, there's no file size limitation, you're sending a link to the file or folder so you can always go back and unshare that at some point in the future or even delete it, removing access to that. Or if you send an attachment, you're going to be limited by file size, and you're basically making a copy of that file that you can't get back once that you've sent. So there are some security limitations with doing an attachment. Also, using Google Drive, if I update a folder or update a file, people, when they click on that link, are going to get the latest version of that without me having to resend it. Another small advantage is, so if I click my insert files using Drive here, it's going to give me access to all of my files and folders. I can also search if I want, which is a little faster. So here, if I were to select that folder, I could insert that entire folder. If I go ahead and open that up, I can select just a single file, and it'll do a link to that file. So you can see over here, insert as Drive link. I can convert Drive links to attachments, but really no need to do that. You're going to keep it as a Drive link. I can also go over into Upload. If I don't already have something in Google Drive, I can upload it on the fly, and it'll put it in my root, and then I can manage it, put it in a folder, etc. From there. In my case, I usually have it already in here. I'll also note if people aren't already using the Google Drive sync on your computer, you can just get in touch with IT. It basically puts a link to Google Drive on your computer like a Windows folder and allows you to manage files right on your computer. You can open from Word or Office and save natively and still have things backed up and available to link in Drive. So if you don't have the local Google Drive sync set up on your computer and that's something you want, it's really easy. Just put a ticket in with IT and we'll walk you through how to do that. So in this case, I am going to select just one of these files. So in this case, this is kind of a cool example. So this is an installer file. In some cases, this may be way too big for me to send as a regular attachment. By putting it in as a Drive link, it's going to let me to put in things that may be a little larger. One of the other advantages of doing a Google Drive link versus an attachment is I can actually click and get a preview here. So this is an installer, so that's not a good example, but let me, if I find a, let's find something that's, so here's an application that I'm working on. So you'll notice now, if I click, I can actually get a preview of that document that I've attached. Whereas if I've done an attachment, a lot of people have noticed that it'll force you to download it and then view it, which can be a little more time consuming. So this is a little bit more convenient. So in this case now, I've attached my files, and I'm going to go ahead and, so in this case, I'll just send it to Steam here. And I'm just going to do, what'll happen is I've attached two items from Google Drive. Now these could have been folders, I could have done multiple things, etc. And I went ahead and sent it to somebody. Now when I send it, it's going to protect me from sending something to people without making sure they have the proper permissions. So this is something I really wanted to kind of review. It defaults to kind of a lowest common denominator setting here. So it's basically checking my recipient list, and it's saying that the documents that I'm trying to share with that, or I'm sending to that person, aren't currently shared with that person. And so you see, by default, it's going to say, well, make it so that anyone at the town of North Andover with a link is able to view these files. So I may not want to give that broad of a security setting to something. In a lot of cases, I don't. So this is one case where I'm hoping that Google changes the default setting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to more options. And in a lot of cases, this is fine. But I can go down here and I can say that only recipients of this email, so in this case, Christine, can view, edit, or comment. So it's usually going to be either view or edit. Now it's warning me that if I select that the person I'm sending it to must have a Google account. So again, I can't share by name unless they have a Google account. Now in this case, it recognized that Christine was part of North Andover. So that's why this is saying anyone at the town of North Andover. If that were an outside person, this would say anyone with the link can view. So in that case, it may be that's how you want to set that up if you're sending to someone outside of our organization who doesn't have a Google account. That would allow you to share the link with them. But that gives you a little bit more control. Generally, if you do send without sharing, the people on the other end are going to get a link to the document, but they're not going to be able to open it. So that gets into a little bit of the permissions on that a little bit. So another thing is if I go ahead and open that document, I can also, if I hover on this, again, I can get the preview, and they've changed this around a little bit. Up in the upper right-hand corner, I can print or download that file, but I can also, clicking on these dots, I can share and organize. So if I wanted, before I sent that, to put it into a folder, or I wanted to change the permissions at the document level, it gives me that option right from there. Another option, we'll go back into Google Drive, for example, is if I go to that folder and I just wanted to share a basic link, by right-clicking on that and going to share, going under advanced, you'll notice that this says link to share. So again, you have to have permission to view it. But if I right-click and copy that link, another option is, as opposed to doing these attachments, and if I accidentally attach something to an email and I want to get rid of it, I can just go ahead and X out and that will remove it. But I can also simply paste the URL into that email and share that link that way. So you've got a few different options of sharing the Google Drive folders. Another kind of cool option in Gmail and on the website is if I wanted to do something like I could type something like that, and I can highlight it. And if I go down to my formatting bar and I click on link, I can paste the link to that file or folder right in there and turn that basically into a hyperlink. So I can do that in email or once we start working on the websites, etc. That allows you to control the formatting so it looks a little bit better. And the person on the other end, Google's automatically going to attach that file or folder so it looks like it's an attachment on that piece. So again, wanted to keep this really brief as more people are working with Google Docs and Drive to share files both within our organization and outside of our organization. Most people are getting the hang of it, and I just wanted to make sure that people understand the difference between sharing directly out of Drive, between using their inbox, and are a little clear on the permissions. The good news, whenever you're using Google Drive or Docs and you're sharing things, if you do make a mistake and you realize that you've sent something out without the correct permission or with too many permissions or too few permissions, you can always go right from the email you sent to that file or folder, and you can take away or add permissions. So that's one of the advantages of using Google Drive versus an attachment. If I sent out an attachment to 100 people, and I just discovered 5 minutes later that I made a mistake and shouldn't have sent it out, there's no way of getting that back. Whereas if I send a Google Drive link out to 100 people and I realize that I overshared, I can go back in here to my folder or a document right from the link in the email, and I can change the permissions on that. So I can decide that I can take away by removing access to somebody, or I can add people so that they can't access that or can access if I want them to. A really cool feature, and this only pertains to people that are using, again, Google Apps, whether it be a town or school user or someone else using Google, is you can set an expiration limit on sharing. So if I want to share a document with somebody for, say, a week or a month or a day, I can set an expiration date, and after that time, that person will no longer have access to view that document. I'm hoping they add that also to this sort of generic permission, but they haven't set that up yet, so I'm kind of waiting for that. But in the meantime, if you're sharing with people, especially within our organization or the school, and you want to let that permission expire after a certain period of time, that's a really good way so you don't have to remember to go back in and take something away. So I don't see any questions coming up. I'll get this edited and posted next week. As always, if you want to do additional training with you or your department, or you have questions about anything Google or IT related, don't hesitate to put in a ticket or book something with us. And if you have any questions after today's session that you didn't get a chance to submit, or if you're watching this in the future, just please send me an email or put an IT ticket in, and we'll get back to you. So, all right, thanks again, everybody.